basically what's happening is the wage is going to be so low, it just has to go down to minimum wage. So you have, say, a union electrician who is going to make 20 to 25 bucks an hour. The union wage may be 25. The prevailing wage may be 20. So they would make 20 on a federal project. Well, if you eliminate and rescind that regulation, that worker will make 10, 15 bucks an hour, maybe no benefits. It could go all the way down to the minimum wage. And what's happening now is that workers are looking at coming in from some of these other foreign countries, from Mexico, from some of these other countries. So the contractors who are getting the unbid contracts are going to start hiring foreign workers to come in for the rebuilding process and paying them a little bit above minimum wage, displacing workers who have lost their family who need to go back and rebuild. And part of the reconstruction effort should be to try to get a little bit of money in the pockets of those people who want to go back and help rebuild the city. I mean, my goodness, that doesn't seem like too much to ask. And I know many Americans feel like that even through a tragedy and you want to go back, you should be working. And here are these people that want to go and actually work that are having their wages cut. And it just seems to me that it's very short-sighted. It's, again, another bent in favor of the contractors who, have a job to do, but not at the expense of everybody else. And, from the beginning here, and I'm sure you've already touched upon all the appointments that were the members of FEMA and the upper echelon of FEMA, all political appointments. And we all understand that happens. We're not trying to play dumb here. But give the guy an appointment who's not qualified. Give him the ambassadorship to a country that's got a lot of beachfront property. That's where you go. You don't put him in charge of FEMA. And that's criminal what happened here. And, again, I don't know how far you got in, but I think the main point from the past few weeks in the review of this was the administration saying, how are we supposed to know the levees were going to break? And we find out that last summer, FEMA sponsored a simulation called Hurricane Pam, was the name of the simulation, and it brought a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane up through New Orleans. And what would happen? Well, in July of 2004, the FEMA simulation said the levees would break, there would be flooding, millions of people displaced, and all of the tragedy that we watched on TV over the past couple weeks was simulated to happen if New Orleans got hit by a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane. And then for the administration to come out and say, how are we supposed to know, is so disingenuous. And then you look at FEMA and it's packed with political hacks, political appointees, an equestrian a horse show organizer is supposed to be in charge of the most important emergency management organization in the country, I think is criminal. I really believe it. And I choose that word specifically. It is criminal because that short-sighted appointment led to people not getting the kind of treatment, the immediate response that was needed. And we've been looking at this for a while now, over the past couple weeks, and have had a chance. And you would just think, and you'll hear in a second, your job, what you should expect from your government is that you pay taxes. And your taxes go, and some get wasted, just like in corporations or anything else. Some of the money gets wasted. But your money goes to FEMA. And you should have an expectation that the Federal Emergency Management Agency should be able to have a person in place that just deals with hurricanes in the Gulf, because there's a hurricane season every year. So what happens if a hurricane hits New Orleans? We have hundreds of people employed here who make good money from the taxpayers. You have to meet your responsibility. And so I feel like that the President's appointments hurt. I think the unbid contracts are continuing the process. The elimination of the prevailing wage is another slap in the face to those people who've been hurt and want to go back and actually work and earn enough money to rebuild their families and their communities. I think this is continuing to go down the wrong road. And I hope that some of what we're talking about here tonight brings that to light, and hopefully we can try to change it. Listen, we want to work with the administration. We want these people to get help. That's why we're here. We're not here to demagogue. We're not here to beat up any one side or the other. but they're in charge, and they're not making the necessary changes that need to be made. And our constitutional responsibility, people send us here to do this, is to make sure that we keep those people in power in check. And they don't seem to be listening, and they don't seem to be following some basic, I think, business procedures that would otherwise be implemented. I just want to make 2 points. One is the Davis-Bacon provision, the prevailing wage issue. Davis and Bacon were both Republicans, so this is not a Democratic issue, okay? This is just something that seems to be fair. If federal money is going to a certain area, that they should pay the worker the wage that is prevalent in that area. That's number one. And two, and I know we've all talked about this, the disparity in income between those people in this country who have and those people who have not is tremendous. And that, I hope that the good that we can derive from Katrina is that. And third, and the most specific point that I want to make, is that this has shown that our government has gone backwards as far as administration and execution. And we see it every day here. We pass a prescription drug bill that's spending $700 billion worth of the taxpayer money and does nothing to allow for reimportation that would drive drug costs down, or doesn't allow the Secretary of Health and Human Services to buy in bulk because the pharmaceutical industry has a stranglehold on this place. We don't see the proper reforms on distribution of health care. We don't see the proper investments in medical information technology that would help drive down the cost of medical care. We have a school system that is based on a society that is agrarian, and kids are supposed to go home in the summer and work on the farm when only 3 or 4% of the country still works in agriculture. These are things that are structural problems, and I think the FEMA issue just shows and highlights and puts the spotlight on it. It's because there's money and there's political appointments, and we got to get our friends in, and we have so many friends that gave us so much money that we even got to put some in FEMA, which probably shouldn't have political appointments, but we've got so many debts that we owe. The debt that we have, the long-term vision, and I have an uncle that I had a very interesting conversation with, and he may be watching right now, and I think my aunt is watching for sure, who worked for Procter & Gamble for God knows how many years. And we had a nice conversation one night about how this political body and political decisions are made every 2 years. We run. Very short-term political decisions are made. Same in the business community. What are our next quarter profits going to be? Very short-sighted. And I think we don't get this country back on the right track until those of us who are in this body are willing to make those long-term structural changes that need to be made to adjust the way government is administered in a 21st century economy based on technology and knowledge. And that was the issue with FEMA. If we ran a Hurricane Pam simulation in 2004, where was the breakdown in getting that information to those people who needed to actually make a decision once there was an actual hurricane in that area? What was the breakdown? And until our government begins to run in an efficient way and in a way that is reflective of the communication abilities in the 21st century, the technological advancements, and everything else, we are going to be behind the 8 ball, whether it's FEMA, education, health care, whatever it may be. We've got to start making decisions that have a long-term impact on making our government run more efficiently. And it should be able to run a heck of a lot more efficient than it did in the 1930s or 1940s.